Hello everyone, Hollywood Big Boss here, and today I'm just going to be doing a brief overview of the Duelists and Frontières rule set. As many people know, there have been some adjustments with Pendulum Monsters and the new Link format with Konami, so today I'm just going to take some time to go over that really quick, and that way new players and some players who have had questions about the rule set so far can get those answered in a correct and timely manner without a fuss. Anyway, let's get into it, shall we? As you can see, the field layout has not changed at all from the 8.0 rule set with our rules. We do not have an extra zone on the left or right for pendulums. They are to be played in the spell and trap zone here, on either side. Additionally, we do not use the extra monster zone at all. We only have the 5 main monster card zones. So any card effects dealing with the extra card monster zone will be dealt on a case-by-case basis, but a lot of them are unfortunately dead cards at this juncture and will not be used. This is just a hypothetical tested run of how pendulums work within Duelists and Frontières. As you can see, this is a hypothetical first hand where the player has drawn 6 monsters, all of them pendulums. Please note that for turn 1 player in Duelists and Frontières, they still draw their card for their opening turn. Now, like normal, these spell and trap zones are used as the Pendulum Zones. So the player can play Dynamis Rex and Dynamis Ceratops to create a scale of 3 and 6. This allows the player to Pendulum Summon between level 4 and 5. Additionally, with the Duelists and Frontières rule set, you may only play 1 pendulum in each zone per turn without a card effect. If a card effect is used, then you may obviously exceed that limit. Now let's get on to Pendulum Summoning. We have a level 5, a level 4, a level 4, and a level 4. So let's Pendulum Summon. Dynamis Pelios, Dynamis Stegosaur, Dynamis Terran, Dynamis Spinos. Now, the difference is, with Duelists and Frontières, is that after completing the Pendulum Summon, both the monsters in the Pendulum Zones are sent to the top of the extra deck. Continuing on from where we left off, as you can see, the opponent's turn has begun. They have summoned Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon with Chaos Form discarding Blue Eyes White Dragon. They have Burst Stream of Destruction, Return of the Dragon Lords, and Blue Eyes Alternative in their hand. Now, here's where Duelists and Frontières differs from Konami. Because the opponent has no cards in their Pendulum Zones, any of their Pendulum Monsters in their Monster Card Zones would be sent to the graveyard instead. So when Player 2 activates Return of the Dragon Lord, special summons Blue Eyes White Dragon, and then proceeds to activate Burst Stream of Destruction, all 4 of their Pendulum Monsters are sent to the graveyard. In a rework of the previous scenario, instead of drawing 6 Pendulum Monsters, the player has drawn 5 Pendulum Monsters and Dynamis Toweling, which they set face down. They have previously Pendulum Summoned, which is indicated from their extra deck, but on the opponent's turn, upon summoning Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon, they have activated Dynamis Toweling, which allowed them to play a monster in each of their Pendulum Zones again. Now, here's where the difference goes when you have a monster in the Pendulum Zone. Opponent still activates Return of the Dragon Lord, special summons Blue Eyes White Dragon, then attempts to activate Burst Stream of Destruction. They are in turn able to use Dynamis Ceratops effects. If Dynamis cards would be destroyed by an opponent's card effect, destroy this card instead. Because there's a monster still in the Pendulum Zone, it is placed on top of the extra deck, and would be regardless because it's in the Pendulum Zone. So Burst Stream of Destruction does not destroy anything. But let's go to the battle phase to see what happens differently. Chaos Max Dragon smashes into Dynamis Stegosaur. This is just a hypothetical. It is placed on top of the extra deck, because there is still a monster in the Pendulum Zone. In a slightly different hypothetical sense, the Kaiba deck has activated Imperial Order. This is not to be treated as first turn, obviously, but it's just a hypothetical scenario. Imperial Order is up, which negates the effects of the Pendulum Monsters in the Pendulum Zone. Blue Eye's alternative White Dragon activates its effect to destroy Dynamis Stegosaur. It still goes to the top of the extra deck because there are still monsters in the Pendulum Zones even though their effects have been negated. Same with Blue Eye's Chaos Max Dragon. It attacks, it's still sent even though the card is negated, it's just because the cards are in those correct zones. We're going over the fact that the player does not have a Pendulum Zone in the 3 scale, but still has one in the 6 scale. Kaiba deck activates Return of the Dragon Lords to special summon Blue Eye's White Dragon, which was used previously for Chaos form. Then the player activates Burst Stream of Destruction. This time, however, things go a little bit different with how we have our rule set up. Monsters in the Pendulum Zones are also treated as monster cards in addition to magic cards while on the field. So when the Kaiba deck activates Burst Stream of Destruction, it destroys all of their monsters. All of them are placed on top of the extra deck since there was a monster in the Pendulum Zone. And immediately after this, however, Blue Eye's White Dragon may not be able to attack, but Chaos Max would be able to swing for 4,000 damage. If a player does not control any monster, but has monsters in their Pendulum Zones, you may declare attacks on their monsters in their Pendulum Zones. This is to be treated as the monsters always being in attack position, since there's no change of positions for spell and trap cards. So Blue Eye's alternative, smashing into Dynamis Stegosaur, it still goes to the top of the extra deck, but the opponent takes 1,400 damage, and Blue Eye's White Dragon swinging into Dynamis Brachion deals 1,000 damage. In this final portion of Pendulum Monsters, we are discussing how Pendulum Monsters function without the extra monster zone being included in the game. Well, it's quite simple. As you can see, we have Dynamis Rex and 2 Spinoses in our hand, and we also have 4 Dynamis that are in the extra deck now. So you would play Dynamis Rex and Dynamis Spinos, and upon Pendulum Summoning, you would be able to special summon Dynamis Spinos from your hand, and then your 4 Dynamis Monsters, which were on top of your extra deck, giving you a second Spinos, Dynamis Rex, Dynamis Ceratops, and Dynamis Terran. Once again, sending the monsters in the Pendulum Zones to the top of the extra deck, giving you a full field of monsters. Duelists Sans Frontières does not have the restriction on extra deck summoning because we are not using the extra monster zone. So Pendulum Summoning, for the changes that we have made to it, it is still stronger under Duelists Sans Frontières than it is under Konami at this point. This is just a brief overview of the differences of Link monsters in Duelists Sans Frontières. Now, still, with Link monsters, you must meet the requirements to summon, and the summoning may only be done from the field. Now we're going to be Link summoning Curious, the Lightsworn Dominion, as you can see right here on camera. We have a Beast Warrior, a Spellcaster, and a Fairy. 3 monsters with different types but the same attribute. Sent to the graveyard, Curious is Link summoned. Now let's read through this monster's effect real quick. If this face-up card is destroyed by battle or leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect while this card's owner controls it, target 1 card in your graveyard, add it to your hand. You can only use each of the following effects of Curious Lightsworn Dominion once per turn. If this card's Link summoned, send 1 card from your deck to the graveyard. You are still able to do this because it's an effect that does not deal with Link arrows. So the player will now send Raiden the Lightsworn Hand to the graveyard, which would allow the player in turn to summon Judgment Dragon, seeing as there are 4 in their graveyard now. Additionally, if cards are sent from deck to the graveyard by an effect, send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. So because of that, after done shuffling, top 3 cards of the deck will go to the graveyard. 2 and 3. So as you can see, Not a whole lot of difference here. Curious does not have any effects dealing with the link arrows, and as you can see, the arrows point to the spell and trap card zones. Seeing as you can't be placing monsters down there, the link arrows are completely ignored by our rule set. Now on the flip side of things, there have been changes to link monsters, whereas the Kaiba deck is able to activate enemy controller and switch Curious the Lightsworn Dominion to defense position. Now you may be asking, what are the defense points of Curious, since there are no points printed on the card? All Link Monsters' defense points are to be treated as 0. So when the Kaiba deck activates Chaos form, sending Blue Eyes White Dragon to the graveyard, summoning Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon, when it attacks Curious, it deals a lethal 8,000 damage to the Lightsworn deck on turn 1. As you can see, there are some drawbacks to using Link Monsters in Duelists Sans Frontières, because we are not using the extra monster zones, and we have no intention of ever using the extra monster zones. Additionally, by the Duelists Sans Frontières rule set, Link Monsters can be flipped face down. So when the Kaiba deck in this scenario activates Book of Moon, Curious is flipped to face down defense position, with its defense still treated as 0. Reveals Blue Eyes White Dragon in hand, special summons Blue Eyes Alternative even though it's not needed, activates Chaos form, sends Blue Eyes to the graveyard for Chaos Max Dragon, and then Chaos Max Dragon attacks Curious for a lethal 8,000 damage in this scenario as well. You will still have the benefits of playing certain Link Monsters, but a lot of them in this type of scenario against this type of deck will not do as well as they normally do. Lastly, we are going to deal with Link Monsters that do have Link Arrow effects. So, as you can see, we've met the requirements, Marshmallow and Pet in the Dark Clown. Send them both to the graveyard to summon Ib, the World Chalice Priestess. This Link card cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. This is ignored because cards cannot be linked because we do not use the link arrows in Duelists Sans Frontières. Your opponent cannot target this link card with card effects. Once again, that effect is ignored. If monsters this card points to would be destroyed by a card effect, send this card to the graveyard instead. Once again, that effect on the card is ignored. If this card sent from the field to the graveyard, special summon one World Chalice monster from your hand. Because this final effect does not deal with any link arrows, this would be the only effect applied to the card. So summon Ib, the World Chalice Priestess, in attack mode with 1,800 attack points. This concludes Duelists Sans Frontières overview of Link Monsters and Pendulum Monsters in the Duelists Sans Frontières rule set as of September 2018. I hope you all have enjoyed this, and I hope you people were able to learn from this experience, so that way you can better use your decks for the situations that they may encounter. Thank you very much. Hollywood Big Boss, signing off.